Bonjour. You've relegated yourself to the second row, Evelyn? And I know, and Maggie's moved up a row. Yeah. There's hope. There's hope. All right. Good afternoon, y'all, as they say. All right. This morning, the Secretary General of these United Nations spoke at the 64th Commission on the Status of Women. Mr. Guterres said that he was truly saddened that the extraordinary circumstances ushered in by the spread of the COVID-19 virus led to the postponement of the full session, but he added that he takes heart in knowing that all the participants remain committed to the cause of gender equality. He said that centuries of discrimination, deep-rooted patriarchy, and misogyny have created a yawning gender power gap in our economies, our political systems, and our cooperations. This simply has to change, he said. The Secretary General added that he was particularly heartened to see a new generation of inspired young activists across the globe taking forward the spirit of constructive action and fearless resilience started in Beijing 25 years ago. He reiterated the UN's commitment to keep working with women across the world to ensure that women and girls everywhere have equal participation in all areas of life. His statement is online. The Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed, marked International Women's Day yesterday in Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea, where she spoke about the Spotlight Initiative, a partnership launched by the UN and the European Union in 2016 to support governments, communities, and civil society organizations to eliminate all forms of violence against women and girls by 2030. She said that Spotlight is the world's largest effort to end all forms of violence against women and girls. The Deputy Secretary General warned that around the world there is an epidemic of violence against women and girls. 1 in 3 women will be affected by violence at some point in their lives, she said, adding that a recent survey by the UN Development Programme found that around the world, nearly 3 people in every 10 think it's acceptable for a man to beat his partner. Her remarks have been shared with you. And turning to Sudan, the UN African Union mission in Darfur today expressed its deep regret, shock, and sadness at the assassination attempt against Sudan's Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok. The mission's joint special representative, Jeremiah Mamabolo, said that this serious incident shows the perpetrators aim to derail the transitional period, adding that the hopes of the Sudanese people for transition to peace, freedom, and justice must prevail. And of course, the Secretary General was shocked and saddened to learn of the assassination attempt. He stands in full solidarity with the Prime Minister and the people of Sudan at this difficult time. Turning to COVID-19, over the weekend, the World Health Organization announced that the global number of confirmed cases now topped 100,000. WHO noted that some countries are demonstrating that spread of the virus can be slowed and its impact reduced through the use of universally applicable actions, such as working across society to identify people who are sick, bringing them to care, and following up on contacts. Regarding the situation in-house in the building, the Secretary General is following the matter very closely. The health and safety of staff is a matter of its utmost priority and concern, as well as all of those who use the building. Here in New York, following internal meetings over the weekend, taking into account the declaration of a state of emergency for New York State, it was announced today that all staff that it is recommended it was announced today to all staff that it is recommended that UN personnel who have recently returned from countries identified by the host country should remain at home and self-monitor for 14 days. Telecommuting and flexible work arrangements are also being recommended for UN personnel, taking into account business continuity requirements. And over in Geneva, UN staff were also notified today how the UN in Geneva aims to maintain essential activities while postponing or canceling other activities. The Palais des Nations is also considering how to put the latest recommendations on telecommuting issued by the Swiss authorities into practice. And we will update you if there are any further details on front in-house. I've been asked about a reported bomb attack on Sunday in Cameroon during the celebrations of International Women's Day in Bamenda in the northwest region of that country. The Secretary General strongly condemns this and all attacks against civilians. He also emphasizes the need to seek a durable political settlement to the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions. And this morning, the Director General of the International Atomic Energy, Rafael Mariano Grossi, briefed IAEA member states on nuclear verification and monitoring in Iran. He said the agency has identified a number of questions related to possible undeclared nuclear material and nuclear-related activities at 3 locations that had not been declared by Iran. Mr. Grossi called on the country to be more cooperative in granting access. And the head of the UN mission to support the Hudaydah Agreement, Lieutenant General Guha, expressed alarm at an aerial strike that took place in Al-Salif early yesterday. He stressed that such aerial strikes hamper the peace process and jeopardize the implementation of the Hudaydah agreements. Meanwhile, on Saturday, Mr. Griffiths, the UN Special Envoy, concluded a one-day visit to Marib in northern Yemen. He said afterwards that the military adventurism and quest for territorial gains that we have seen since mid-January in northern Yemen are leading us away from peace. Mr. Griffiths said the only way to save Yemen from slipping back into a large-scale conflict and other humanitarian tragedy is a return to calm through a comprehensive, inclusive, and accountable de-escalation process. Ms. Kaneko. Okay, thank you. Couple of things to flag. Tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. in this very room, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, will be joined by the Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization, Petteri Talas. They will be here to brief you on the latest WMO report on the state of the climate. So I will be big-footed by not one but 2 Secretaries General tomorrow, so we will not have the briefing. Mr. Talas will present the report. The Secretary General will make some opening remarks. He will take a few questions and he will leave, and Mr. Talas will continue on. And we want to thank the European Principality that paid $308,587 as its full budget dues in full, bringing us up to 66. What is the name of that principality?
Monaco.
Bingo. San Marino is not a principality as far as I know.
I know my principalities.
Andorra is a principality. Liechtenstein is a principality. But yes, anything regal, Maggie will get. Yes,
do I get a question for that then?
Yes, you do get the first question.
I saw that Ursula Mueller is leaving. Mm-hmm. Is that just a scheduled departure, or is there something? Did I miss a personnel announcement?
It's scheduled. We are, of course, extremely grateful to Ms. Mueller's work. I think the Secretary General thinks very highly of her and the work she has done, and we will announce a replacement in due course.
And then on Corona, of course, we can't let that go by without 10 questions. I saw that Eunice is closed today. Is there a suspected case at the school?
I'm not aware. You'd have to check with the school. Okay. I don't have that information.
And as part of your preparedness that you were mentioning earlier for UN headquarters, are you going to conduct some sort of teleworking drill? A lot of companies are doing that.
Well, we will implement, we will move to telecommuting for some staff. I mean, we'll see what we can do in terms of our own office. I would have to say that a lot of UN staff are already used to working while traveling or telecommuting. We just want to make sure that everyone has the equipment they need and understands the rules. So managers will be briefed throughout the day as kind of a refresher on how telecommuting works and the responsibilities of both the manager and the staff. But I think we will move fairly quickly on that front.
And just one more, if you'll indulge me. What about suspending travel, non-essential travel of staff?
I mean, as the rules remain in place that it's really about that only essential travel should take place. Yes, sir.
Just a couple more COVID follow-ups. So there are no confirmed cases yet associated with anything to do with UNHQ, is that right?
I'm not aware of any cases at this point that we have been, that the medical service has been notified about.
And then, do we have Do we have an idea about how many UN staffers or contractors are self-quarantining, having traveled to the relevant countries recently?
I will try to get you a number on that. We're trying to harvest UN system-wide numbers on that. It depends a lot. It depends also a lot of self-reporting from agencies and everything. So we're trying to harvest that global number for you. Ms. Fasulo.
Thank you, Steph. Following up on the same issue, we know that the Conference on the Status of Women had been canceled. Are there any other conferences that the Secretary General or the UN is particularly concerned about? Are there large meetings, perhaps, that are being canceled?
There are a number of... just talk about UNHQ. There are a number of member state meetings that are on the calendar. I mean, the calendar of conferences is public. Some are more visible than others, like CSW. Others are more technical meetings. I think each meeting is being looked at on a case-by-case basis as either cancellation or postponement or descaling, if that's a correct word, of just kind of scaling down the participants that happen. We will let you know. But we're looking at it on a case by case.
But have there been any other conferences besides the CSW that
in New York? Not that I'm aware of at this point. Stefano.
Yes, another subject is the border between Greece and Turkey and the refugee problem over there. Did the Secretary General had any contact in the last few days with the government or any about this situation that is getting always worse?
We have been that is really at this point in the hands of UNHCR and IOM, who are taking the lead. The Secretary General has been kept up to date. I know by Mr. Grandi on the situation. I think we expressed our concern on Friday on the situation and the use of force that we had seen. And we're obviously keeping an eye on it. We know Mr. President Erdogan is, I think, going to Brussels today. We'll see what comes out of it. What remains for us, a bedrock principle, is that people, whether they be migrants or refugees, be treated with dignity. That there should be no use of force, and of course that the international community do whatever it can to solve the conflicts that are forcing people to move, and that also address the underlying causes that are forcing people to move, notably the situation in northwest Syria. Maggie, and then we'll go back to Linda.
We saw on Friday that Department of Peacekeeping said that they're trying not to rotate some troops now because they don't want new troops coming from hotspot countries to peacekeeping missions. How else has this outbreak affected your operations on a tangible basis?
Well, I mean, for the Secretariat, it really is. I mean, the largest impact is on the movement of troops and rotation of troops for peace operations. That's our largest kind of chunk of people that are on the move. A number, I think it's said that both the Department of Peace Operations, Department of Operational Support, with the guidance and technical expertise of the medical division here at headquarters, are reviewing all troop and police rotations for next 6 months for a time frame. Some countries have been asked to delay rotations by 3 months, and because we also need to make sure that the missions are able to continue their operations. All the troops that are in the field are needed, right? Anytime you take out a contingent is now replaced, that has an impact on the operations. And then, of course, on the ground, the peacekeeping operations are putting in mitigation measures to promote the safety and health of the UN personnel, and also the ability to conduct the operations, and obviously to protect the health of the local population.
Are you having any supply chain issues yet, particularly with peacekeeping?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
And the WHO director is briefing now, and he's saying that it looks like, I don't want to misquote him, he said the threat of coronavirus pandemic now is, quote, very real. if he elevates it to a pandemic level, does that in any way change how you operate or your assistance to governments?
It's kind of a. I'm not sure exactly what he's saying. Not that I don't trust you. Obviously, if and when that declaration happens, we will take whatever measures WHO recommends. I mean, they are in the lead in terms of not only globally but within the UN system and how we adapt. So we'll have to see if and when that happens. Linda.
Thank you. Following up on COVID-19, we know there are many, many NGOs who come to the building. Mm-hmm. I was wondering if the NGOs are also subject to the same regulations here at UN headquarters.
Well, whether you're an NGO, whether you're a staff member, whether you're a visitor, whether you're a journalist, we all have personal responsibilities, right? And we all need to live up to those personal responsibilities. That's really kind of a key building point. We operate and live in a host country. We're following the host country guidelines, the host city, New York State as well. I mean, the basic guidelines encouraging people to wash their hands frequently, to disinfect, should be followed by everyone. Yeah.
Steph, also a follow-up on COVID-19. It seems that there's a lack of test kits in the US. So do UN personnel have access to UN tests?
No, we do not. We are not equipped, nor are we qualified to do testing at UN headquarters. We rely on the host country for testing. Yes, Margaret. Don't ever make a promise. Don't ever make a promise you can't hold. Yeah.
On 1325, on the CSW, there was no reference to 1325, Security Council Resolution 1325, Peace and Security, and several
in the Secretary General's remarks.
No, sorry, in the political declaration,
right.
And several delegations commented on they were regretting that there was no mention of it. That was sort of news to me. Have you heard anything?
No, I mean,
why it wasn't in there?
That's a question to address to those member states who drafted and agreed on the political declaration. For his part, the Secretary General has always underscored the importance of that resolution, notably in events, recent events, notably the one in Addis Ababa where he marked the 20th anniversary. Dottore.
Grazie. Con coronavirus, because governments around the world have been reacting in different way. We saw how China did in the beginning. Now Italy, for example, but we see that France, Germany, they act differently also in this country. So what is the opinion of the Secretary General? I mean, does he have advices around that? Means, is somebody exaggerating or others are not taking this seriously enough?
Look, we have the WHO and Dr. Tedros, who is in the lead on how the UN system deals with it, on the sort of guidance and advice they give governments. We encourage all member states to follow the advice of the World Health Organization, and if they need assistance, to ask for assistance from WHO. Yes, madam.
Also about coronavirus. So, do you know anything about refugees population, the one that UN, involved with, let's say, with UNHCR, or also those in Bangladesh and Syria? So, are they, aware of about hand sanitization, or if they have them, or is UN doing anything about it?
It's a very valid question. I have no doubt that our colleagues at UNHCR and the entire UN family that is there to support refugees in the various camps and settlements is doing its utmost. But we can check with UNHCR as exactly what they're doing. Yep.
Was there a readout from the Secretary General on Pompeo on Friday?
Yes, we issued something by email, and I've literally blanked out everything that's happened last week. So we start again on Monday. We'll send it to you.
Based on your COVID-19 contingency plans, what would it take for UNHQ to shut down?
I think we're obviously going to be guided by the city authorities, by the state, but I'm not going to go into details of what it would take. We're obviously ready for any contingency. We've not, but no one has indicated for the need for this building to shut down.
If it were shown that the virus had spread within the building, would UNHCR
I'm not.
shut down?
You know, I'm not. I think it's dangerous to speculate on these sorts of issues. What I will tell you is that we are ready for any eventuality. You see, you already broke your promise. It took about 3.5 minutes.
It's Toby's fault because he asked a very valid question, and I have a follow-up.
Yeah, blame somebody else.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
On the readout of the SG Pompeo meeting, the State Department had a longer one than you. They explicitly referred to Mr. Pompeo expressing his displeasure to the Secretary General about the OHCHR settlements list about companies doing business in the territories. Your readout made no mention of it. Also, I thought it was interesting neither readout made mention of the coronavirus, that no one was discussing this threat to the planet. So could you expound on both of those, please?
On your first, the readout is the readout. We speak for one side of the table, for the Secretary General. It's not for me to comment on the readout that others put out. I mean, it's not. So I'll leave it at that. On Corona, I can only go by the readout. I'll see if there's anything else I can tell you on that. Madame.
It's just to understand. It's a follow-up on my colleague's question, on Kevin's question. Not about what it's going to take you to shut down the building, but it seems that compared to some private companies, the UN is a bit slower in reactions, like, for example, in imposing self-quarantine to employees, or to screen visitors, or people who are not tagged to the building. For example, we know for a fact that, and it was actually experiments made in Asia, that if you increase the rotations of cleaning of the building, and especially in the bathrooms and areas and everything, it actually slowed down the contagion. So have you changed anything in your routine?
Yes, so there is an increased frequency in cleaning and disinfecting during the overnights and during the day. We have, I think we have. I mean, I don't fully agree with your assessment of the velocity of the way we're dealing with this. I'm sharing with you information. The issue, a number of this. What is critical, and what we have told staff from day one, is that they need to follow the guidelines and the requirements and the instructions from the host country, whether we work in Geneva, whether we work in New York, Vienna, or Nairobi.
But the host country is clearly not having enough test kits. We have host countries' presidencies that are only UN-owned health organization issue fake news. So maybe.
I didn't hear a question mark, so I won't answer that. Evelyn.
Has the SG commented or reacted to the fact that the majority of member states have delegations that are led by men or all men, or almost all men? And when one listened to today's CSW, it was amazing. There must have been no more than 3 women speaking.
I think that the Secretary General is fully aware of the gender gap, whether it's at national level in parliaments or within the permanent representatives. On that note, we will not shake hands, and we shall see each other tomorrow.